Welcome to Bunch Formation, your newest favorite college football show. I am Chris Vannini. I am still celebrating my victory in Bunch Formation Bowl 5.
I'm sure you are, Chris. I am David Ubben, and I went skydiving at the Virginia Tech spring game this weekend. It went great. Thanks for asking. Nothing too crazy happened. Just good times. Landed at that midfield like we planned. So, yeah, it's great.
We got a big show here. A lot of spring games to talk about. What happened on the field, as well as what happened on the Virginia Tech scoreboard, plus some news. And but most importantly, our fifth CFB 26 Dynasty game took place on Friday night, I think it was. And I won.
That's right.
I won. My Oklahoma Sooners beat David's Arkansas Razorbacks. That game is on the Bunch Formation YouTube channel with our live commentary and our faces and everything. Talking throughout the whole game. It's under the live tab on the YouTube. It came down to the final play of the game. It
touching tribute to Matt Davison in Nebraska.
But a lot of fun. You'll enjoy the way that game ends. Go check that out. Enjoying doing that. Appreciate everybody who listened to the last episode. Bit of a change of pace. We did an interview. I had Trick Williams, formerly Matrick Belton for South Carolina wide receiver. He's now a wrestler for WWE. And David, something that happened in that interview late, you weren't there to talk about. But Trick Williams told me before as he was getting into wrestling, he was briefly on the show All American, which was on the CW back in the day. And you love that show.
So, well, I enjoy watching that show. Love that show. Is complicated. Chris, I love this podcast, but in my heart of hearts, I think the podcast that I really always wanted to create was a All-American rewatch podcast with myself and our former colleague / friend Ari Wasserman, because in the show's heyday, it got a little off track, but in its heyday, we would just be texting each other frantic, a lot of exclamation points while the show was airing. It's an insane television show that operates in a world where football, I don't know, it's some alternate universe of football, but shout out to All American. Not a good show. Not a show that I particularly think is strong, but a show that I couldn't quit. So
it's also how I feel about pro wrestling at the moment. So there's that. But we're back to talk about just about football today. Check out the show notes if you want to jump ahead. We will have timestamps in there. Please send feedback emails. And if you want to be a sponsor on the show, to bunchformationpod@gmail.com. And we are Bunch Formation on all your social medias. We will read 5-star reviews and comments on the show. And David, we got a comment on Spotify from someone who said, "I'm dying at the Ramonce Taylor mention toward the end. I played 7th and 8th grade football with Ramonce at Bonham Middle School in Temple, Texas." And then a comment here that I don't want to read it on the air.
7th, 8th grade Ramonce Taylor had to be an absolute terror on the football field. There's no question. I would bet you he got tackled maybe twice that entire season.
He was a remember the guys we had last week, so appreciate that. All right, it's time to jump into the news, and to do that, we go to the media scrum.
That's why I don't read the newspaper, because it's garbage.
Week 0 is very close to becoming the official start date of the college football season. Last week, the FBS Oversight Committee officially recommended starting the season on the Thursday of Week 0, which is the weekend before Memorial Day weekend. The purpose of this is to provide 14 weeks to play 12 games, giving everybody 2 byes, which we have had the last couple of years because of kind of a quirk in the calendar. We've had 2 byes, but we're going back to 1 bye this upcoming week, 13 weeks to play 12 games. It's gotten very difficult for teams and conferences to schedule games because the conferences are so big, because non-conference is having less and less space to fit in. This doesn't impact the postseason or any of that stuff. It's just when the season starts, it would still end Thanksgiving weekend, the regular season. But I think this is ultimately a good move and one that needs to be done, even if it's going to feel a little bit weird. Oh, also, by the way, this would start in 2027.
I think my biggest question, and I don't know that we have an answer to this yet, Chris, is if we're going to get 2 consecutive weekends of like 4 days of football and then 5 days for Labor Day, I'd be extremely in on that. If we're getting Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, that's a lot of football to start the season. I'm definitely all in on that. Be able to see some football in person, be able to get out to multiple games in a week, and maybe not 6 in 5 days, like some people have done, but like a couple games in the first couple weekends will be fun. I like this. I think it's fine, especially if we can get those 2 sort of supersized weekends.
Yeah, it would be 2 full weekends of college football before the NFL starts as well. But if you see that coming up, it's not about changing rivalry week of the playoff or anything. It's just about starting the season and doing 2 byes. Now, what would happen when in a number of years we get back to a 2-bye normal year? I'm not sure, but that's what that is. Elsewhere, Indiana defensive coordinator Bryant Haines upset Alabama fans on Twitter over the weekend. Just really, he's pretty aggressive on there. They don't talk to the media very much, I don't think, those coordinators, but they're free to tweet whatever they want, apparently. And so Ty Simpson was on, I believe, Caleb Downs' podcast and was asked about playing Indiana. And Ty Simpson said, they didn't do anything we didn't expect. They didn't do anything crazy or fancy. They were just always in the right spot every single time. Quote, they didn't mess up. And he credited to the coaching. And Haynes saw this and quote tweeted it and said, adorable. We also saw everything they were doing on every single snap. It's just that we exploited those cues and didn't get frozen and crushed by them. So I guess he was taking offense to the idea that Indiana's defense wasn't complicated.
I don't know. I mean, I think so. In that clip, Ty Simpson also says like when they're playing in the SEC, they see a lot more exotic looks and like a lot more disguised coverages, and so maybe there's something in there. But weird to take offense. Hey, I really appreciated how well coached your team was, and you didn't have to call 80 defenses in a game, and you held us to 3 points. And you're mad about this. I mean, listen, my general rule with coaches is when I interact with them and they're like a little bit too normal, I get a little concerned for their future. They kind of always, especially the defensive guys have to always kind of be running hot, and the offensive guys have to always be like a little weird to me. And if they're not, I get concerned for them. So, it's sort of playing to character, I suppose, but it's a results business, Chris.
And this is also coming off of, as we remember during the playoff, the accusations that Indiana was stealing signals or whatever. Like Miami fans are putting that out and stuff like that. So Haynes has been pretty, trigger happy with some of that stuff and responded to that too. And after this blew up, Haynes then tweeted, quote, that's all it took to break your entire fan base? Wow. Maybe I should have just said boo. No apologies, no compliments. Grow up, folks. He had a bad take, and I said the painful truth. Bounce back better. Hashtag go IU. Hashtag no compliments. So, but again, like Bruce Feldman, our colleague, like did like a coach's confidential stuff during the playoff, and other coaches would say the same thing about Indiana, that they don't do anything crazy. They just do it extremely well. And I took that as a compliment to the staff. Like, these are college players. It's hard to have them doing the correct thing on every single play. And Indiana did. They were number 1 in turnover margin and third down and all these things. So Bryant Haines, respect for riling people up on Twitter. It's way more fun than people.
I think overall, though, Chris, like between Nick March's gold cleats, which we talked about on the show, and Kurt Signity firing back at TCU and over the Josh Hoover stuff, and now this, like Indiana kind of feeling itself for an offseason. I'm into it. It's a lot more entertaining than like the Saban clones who sort of like. So for the last 15 years of the sport, like Nick Saban did things one way, which generally was not good for access. Where
that's going to come up later in this show.
It will, but Pete Carroll did things completely opposite, and they seemed to do okay at USC, and it worked there, even in the sort of bright lights and fishbowl of USC. And it infected the rest of the SEC, where it's like, we're not going to let our people talk to the media, and we're going to be very straight-laced and, trust the process and, and all that stuff. And Indiana, like, not really operating that way. Like, Cignetti's been doing it different since the start. And for him to climb the mountaintop in 2 years, like, Indiana at the top is a little bit more entertaining than the sort of Saban and his disciples sort of running around the SEC, locking everybody out.
But I will say again, like, Cignetti doesn't let the rest of the staff talk to the media. It's really just him. So it's just Bryant Haines kind of being a bit like a Brett Bielema, I guess, so to speak. Michigan coach Sherrone Moore was sentenced to 18 months probation last week after pleading guilty to 2 misdemeanor charges. He initially faced a felony charge of third-degree home invasion and 2 misdemeanors from the day he was fired, and kind of going after the staffer. As part of a plea deal reached with prosecutors in March, he pleaded no contest to charges of malicious use of a telecommunications device and trespassing. So, sorry, pled no contest, did not plead guilty, different situation. But the other one was dropped. He is obviously not coaching, and who knows what's going to happen with him, but update there. Don't think there's really much else to say.
Yeah, I mean,
that's kind of an end to that.
A couple small thoughts on this. I do think it'll be interesting to see kind of what his future holds. But the judge said it in the courtroom, talking about one of the reasons why his sentence was what it was because of his wife's letter of support. I'd like to hear from her, like, at some day, because her story is pretty interesting. In the police calls, her 911 calls, her like calmness and like care for her husband, and then she's been with him at the every court appearance and all those things, and been pretty supportive. I hope at some point she tells her story, because it's been striking to me to see that.
Oklahoma All-SEC linebacker Owen Heinecke was granted another year of eligibility. He was given a temporary restraining order injunction by the state court in Oklahoma against the NCAA. So unless something unexpected changes, he will get another year. This eligibility, the NCAA has been winning most of these eligibility cases. This one was unique, though, because he played 3 games in 2021 as a walk-on freshman lacrosse player at Ohio State, then transferred to Oklahoma, sat a year, I think, with a medical redshirt or something, and played out his career. He was arguing he should get another year because 2021 shouldn't count because it was so limited play, and that COVID impacted his recruiting coming out of high school. And that was enough for the judge. So that's a big pickup, or a big a way to keep him for Oklahoma, which should have, once again, a very, very good defense. We'll talk about the Sooners later in this show as well. David, anything on this?
I'm fine with it. I'm ready for the waivers and court stuff over eligibility to kind of be a bygone era. But we're in it now. I think this one passes the smell test for common sense of, like, nobody's going to be up in arms about this.
Yeah, and the NCAA is starting to move forward on the idea of 5 years of eligibility, no exceptions other than military or you're pregnant or you're in the religious service. But 5 for 5 years, either when you graduate high school or when you turn 19, that's when your clock starts, no matter what. And you got 5 years to play as much or as little as you want. No more medical red shirts, no more injury stuff, all this stuff. They may have to grandfather athletes in, which is going to be weird because you have a bunch of players right now who just finished up their eligibility, wondering if they should be able to play again. It's going to be a process to kind of make this happen, but the NCAA is trying to move forward and make some of its own rules, and so keep an eye on that. Last bit of news, Wisconsin Athletic Director Chris McIntosh took a job with the Big Ten. Surprising for a couple of reasons, but more than anything, the feeling around the industry was he was maybe in his last year in that role anyway. And with the struggles of the football program, with the basketball team not advancing very far in the tournament in a very long time, that they may make a change at AD along with football coach next year. So instead, he gets a landing spot at the Big Ten. They will work to hire a new AD, and then that AD will make a decision on Luke Fickell, next season. So the clock is ticking on Luke Fickell if he doesn't turn around next season.
Yeah, I athletic director could be a bit of a fickle job from time to time.
I see what you did there.
I wasn't meaning to, but well played. Because on the one hand, like Luke Fickell, you forget, was a huge coup for them at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea
it was a big hire for McIntosh because people thought, oh, just hire Jim Leonard, keep it from within. Wisconsin's going to stay in the family, and instead he went out and got maybe the best coach that we thought was available.
But I do think that it's a bit of in retrospect, winning the press conference more than finding a good fit, because Wisconsin, the entirety of the state, it seems like the best prospects that come from that state are pretty consistently offensive linemen. And so going away from that, early on trying to embrace the air raid, I think a lot of people had questions about that transition at the time, and it has gone about as poorly as you could have expected. Last year, they were in a lot of name your number games, and just the idea of Wisconsin playing any name your number games, much less playing more of those than not, it was stark and kind of jarring to watch last year how bad that team was. So we'll see.
They just don't have any good players. They just don't have players.
A lot of that going around these days.
And the money is when you talk to agents, the money they're paying to players is okay, but it's not near the top of the Big Ten where you have teams spending.
Well, how much of that is Fickell though? We talk about donor fatigue a lot, and I think one of the things that it plays into is when you have a coach that no one believes in. He's done nothing to establish any kind of belief in anyone, and then the money has ramped up. And if you're a donor and they come to you saying, "Hey, can you throw $2 million in the pot?" Why would you do that?
Yeah.
I think you can hire another coach. I think that can change in a hurry. But that's the reality of the current moment that we're in. We've always kind of seen it in the past, but when that money is not going to, a stadium expansion or a new, locker room or whatever, it shows up on the field, that lack of money, a lot quicker. Because I don't know how you fundraise in the current environment that Wisconsin's in.
And I think we saw at Michigan State, they hired a new AD who then made a coaching change and immediately got a big influx of money from some very rich people around Michigan State. So we will see. All right, now let's move into a lot of spring game thoughts. We had a lot of spring games over the weekend, so we're going to jump into some spring game talk.
It's got to stop that little inside trap.
That one's for you. First off, I miss the days, 10 years ago when every spring game was on television. And you could watch them whenever. And I wouldn't necessarily watch all of them live, but you'd go back and watch some things. I miss when spring games were a big deal. That was a trend this weekend too, was the attendance, not what it used to be back in the day. It's good that some of them are coming back. There was a year or two where nobody was doing spring games because nobody wanted to lose players to the spring portal. But now that we don't have a spring portal, spring games are kind of back. But David, you don't like that days when spring games were everywhere?
No, because it's bad football. Here's what spring games are, Chris. It's a chance to see guys that, you're young guys you haven't really seen before. When they were in their heyday, you didn't have all these kind of transfer fits that you're trying to keep an eye on. So you get a look at kind of these new guys, first-year coaches. Can we get a look at the system for the first time? And then, frankly, for fans, just get out, get to the stadium. You can do it for a way more affordable price. The actual football is not good. So
no, but you're not going there to watch an NFL game.
But that's why I'm saying I don't really care to watch these things that much on TV. I'll watch a little bit of it, but it's vanilla offensive calls or vanilla defensive calls. You kind of you can see very, very little. What I want to see is these.
Hold on, you were just complaining about access and not being able to see much, and then suddenly here's a scrimmage you get to watch, and you're I don't want to watch it.
No, I'm fine with them. I think they should open it for the people that really want to watch it and want to have insight into their team. But it's not a good TV product. It's just not because
it's not supposed to be. Who cares?
Because you're talking about I want to watch it on TV. What I want to see is let them bring in FCS teams, play some pay games, do that in the spring instead. If a team like Syracuse and Colorado have been playing footsie for 2 years with each other, trying to get the game going, and the NCAA keeps saying no. Why? There's no reason that we shouldn't have this. We need these little intra-squad scrimmages.
So I actually asked somebody involved about that because it was requested a second time, but
Yeah,
again,
they went
got
after it again
denied.
this year, and it didn't really get far.
And it's because we've talked about it on the show. They are going to change the spring calendar as soon as next year potentially, where instead of the current spring limit, they're going to change it to OTAs, which could be later in the spring or spread out over a different period
Probably
of
after
time.
the spring semester.
Cut them up and cut them up into different things. It's going to be a lot more flexible. So they didn't want to suddenly allow that if we're about to change it anyway. So they got to do that first, and then maybe you get a spring this or that. But look,
That's
I mean,
a
I
good
would
TV product. Listen, we're in a sport and in landscape where everybody's trying to find more money. That's a great way to find it. You can sell that on your campus. You can sell that to your TV partners. Chris, how much would you pay to watch Syracuse and Colorado play a football game on Saturday? I would watch that 100 times out of 100.
I would watch it. I wouldn't.
Game
I
one
wouldn't
of the NBA playoffs.
I wouldn't pay for it. Well, okay. Well,
If
you're
somebody
in
said,
the minority
hey,
there.
you can watch Syracuse and Colorado play a real football game for $25, you would not pay that? I would.
I would find some illegal stream. I'm not paying $25 to do it.
Maybe, but ultimately they're going to be putting it on somewhere.
But then saying something else would be better is different than saying I don't want to watch the spring games that we're getting. And I'm glad that we can watch the spring games that we're getting.
It's better than nothing, but it's not
yes,
good. It's
that's
bad.
what I'm saying.
It's
football.
TV
It's something. You see some of these freshmen. You see what a new offense might look like. I remember when I was at Michigan State as a student. It was going into my second year, and all the talk was about Keith Nickel, who was a 4-star guy who had gone to Oklahoma, transferred to Michigan State. Everybody thought he's going to be the next big quarterback. And this guy named Kirk Cousins ends up having a really good spring game. And everybody's like, this Kirk Cousins guy is interesting. Kirk Cousins, one of the highest paid players now in NFL history. But that was back when Mark D'Antonio would do, all right, we're going to split the team into 2 teams. You draft the teams and you play. Like, not a lot of teams are still doing that anymore. It's a lot of offense versus defense, which that is actually bad football and difficult stuff to watch. So
Yeah.
That's that. Let's talk about some of the teams, though. Ohio State, for example, the defense won the whatever they did here. But there were a couple of interesting things here. Julian Sayin showed some mobility. Now, he's not going to get hit, obviously, but that was something you really wanted to see addition to his game. Ran for a touchdown, looked like he was moving out there. That could be something to watch if he can add that to his game. Chris Henry Jr., guess what? Looks like Ohio State's got another really, really good wide receiver on its hands. This one with NFL pedigree. He looked really
I am curious
good.
what the development looks like without Brian Hartline, but yes.
Tavian St. Clair looks like the next quarterback in line. He's the backup. He redshirted last year, 5-star guy 2 classes ago. Won't replace Sayin, but he really looked good in this game. So whether it's waiting another year at Ohio State or transferring next year, I don't know, but look good. And can confirm he was really good for me in my CFB 26 dynasty when he transferred to Oklahoma for me. The offensive line struggled at Ohio State. They're having some injuries, though, so hard to read on that. But O-line was kind of up and down for them last year. And then redshirt freshman cornerback Devin Sanchez really showed out. And our colleague Cam Teague thinks he might be an All-American at some point. Former 5-star guy as well. So a couple of interesting highlights. You're not going to be you're going to be shocked to learn that Ohio State has a lot of really good players on its team.
Question for you, Chris, and our Indiana listeners. I'm going to ask you to earmuff it right now because you're not going to like to hear this.
You hear that, Brian Haines?
Yeah, I just don't want to hear from the Indiana people who are going to get mad at this. Has Ohio State passed Georgia as like the standard in the sport? Because it was Alabama for about 15 years, and then it was Georgia for like a 2 or 3 year window where like you are the program by which all other programs are judged. Is it Ohio State now? Because I kind of think yes.
I think so because they've won a national championship more recently, and they were, undefeated. They were number 2 going into the championship game
this year.
Yeah,
just that. I mean, that window. I mean, again, to be the standard, I think you have to sustain it. I think like 4 to 5 years of just like 11, 12, in the national championship. Like I think that's the baseline to even get in that conversation. So for Indiana, you're talking about one great year. Last year, good team, but probably helped by the schedule, kind of humbled in the playoff. But it's interesting, like how many things are looking a little more northern these days in the sport. that's sort of an unofficial belt, but it feels like last year it kind of turned a little bit as Georgia hasn't won a playoff game in like 2-3 years. They haven't won a
Correct.
playoff game in the 12-team era. So
People are not people aren't talking about Kirby Smart the way they talk about Ryan Day or did talk about Ryan Day. And not saying they necessarily should. Kirby has 2 titles, Ryan Day has 1, and he kept losing to Michigan. But it's been a while since Georgia has been in a semifinal. So
yeah,
there's that. Speaking of up north and national champions, Michigan didn't learn much. This was also the Michigan and Ohio State games were both on BTN. I did watch them. Didn't learn much about Michigan in terms of like starters and who's back, but freshman quarterback Tommy Carr looked really good. Like again, he's not going to start
look forward
over
to seeing
Bryce.
him in 2 years, Chris.
Yeah, it's going to be a couple of years, but like he's not going to start over Bryce Underwood. But he looked good. He's 6'4". He can move. Good numbers. That's like prototypical like guy right there. And freshman Savion Hyder, the running back, also looked really good. He's gotten bigger too since he came in. They really, really like him. And the defensive line looks like a strength after it really took a step back last year. So we still don't really know what we're going to fully get with Michigan under Kyle Whittingham and the Jason Beck offense and all that. We didn't see a ton, but the players coming in at Michigan look really good.
I just think with Michigan, I'm excited to see this because I think Kyle Whittingham, his biggest strength is knowing what his team is and leaning into that. Like when they were duct tape and twining it with Sione Vaki a couple years ago and just finding ways to drag every team into like a 13-9 slugfest when they had like nothing on that roster and they had like 9 guys hurt on defense and no quarterback and Cam Rising's hurt and all that stuff. Like I just think figuring out what you are and what you have and leaning into that, I'm really excited for the Kyle Whittingham Michigan experience. It's going to be, if nothing else, interesting, but the ceiling is, I'm all in on this.
I would agree. Over at Georgia, the aforementioned Bulldogs, no real drama, no real big story. And our colleague Seth Emerson wrote that that's probably good for Georgia at this point. But, you had 31,000 people there, the lowest attended spring game, non-pandemic under Kirby Smart. But again, that's kind of changing the way people kind of view spring games and stuff. But there's no quarterback battle. It's Gunnar Stockton. Got the same coordinators. Number 8 in returning production. Got good running backs in Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens. I think the defense should be better based on who's coming back. There is a question. Speaking of the defense, though, however, news from Georgia is an ACL injury to Amaris Williams, the edge rusher who transferred from Auburn. That's a pretty big loss for a guy that they were hoping to get a lot out of. And then at receiver, receiver tight end, whatever, you lost 6 of the top 7 pass catchers. And they didn't really add a star guy like Zachariah Branch. They paid up to keep the young guys who will have to step up. So what do you think of Georgia?
I think this season is going to be decided by like, will Mike Bobo commit to like run the ball? Because I love Nate Frazier. I think his upside is enormous. I think Chauncey Bowens, has some real potential. With Gunnar Stockton, I think he's got a pretty high floor, but I just don't really see the ceiling. He has had some really good moments, but like if you're down 14-0 to a top, 10 team, I just don't really believe in his ability to bring you back, especially when you don't have a lot of like big time weapons around him. Especially losing Zachariah Branch, who they've found some really creative ways to get him the ball last year.
School
as well.
record for catches, Branch.
Yeah. So it feels like this might have to be a throwback Georgia team to like the Gershel days, back when they had Todd Gurley and I forgot. Is it Nick Marshall? What was the kid's name?
I think that was right.
The other kid, not Todd Gurley. Yeah. Anyway, it feels like
not
we're going to
Nick
have to
Marshall.
be
That's
like
the quarterback. That's the quarterback from Auburn.
I knew that wasn't it. Anyway, but like going back to those days and like leaning on the running game, and then let Gunnar Stockton make some throws off of play action, or when you have some stacked boxes and you can get single coverage on the outside. But I think that if you're going into a game and asking Gunnar Stockton to throw the ball 40 times, I think that's a recipe for not what you want to be for Georgia. But they're going to be an interesting team this year.
like I think about the Tennessee game where Gunnar Stockton really kind of won them.
That was the
game.
best I've seen him.
But he never really got back to that again. He doesn't throw across the middle very often. It's often a lot of safe throws. Can they be explosive in the passing game? Because they weren't last year. So that's the explosiveness on offense in the pass game and the pass rush on defense, because they had the fewest sacks in the SEC last year, and now you've potentially lost Amaris Williams depending on how that ACL injury goes.
Keith Marshall, Chris. Keith Marshall, not the
Keith Marshall.
My
the running back in the day. That's a good call. Over at Miami, the defending national runner-up, Darian Mensah and Cooper Barcott. How do you say it? Barcade? How do you say this last name? Barcade?
I think it was Barcade.
Barcade. I write these names down and then forget to look up how to pronounce them because you see it written all the time and you don't say it out loud. But they played very well together, as you would expect, in the Miami spring game. Showed off a lot of their chemistry. That wide receiver room at Miami is really deep. With him, with Malachi Toney, with Cam Vaughn coming from West Virginia, they have a lot of really good wide receivers there, and a guy who I think you can lean on to throw the ball around in a way that you couldn't really quite do with Carson Beck. A couple of the freshmen look good in this game. Had a bunch of bad snaps in this spring game, apparently, from the freshman. I think he's the backup center, but Mario Cristobal said that was an injury issue, so that's what that was. I think the biggest questions are going to be replacing the defensive line and the elite pass rushing that you had.
Still a loaded team. I think I don't even know how this is possible, Chris, because I don't think it's true with Indiana. But I think Miami is kind of coming in a little bit under the radar, like coming into 2026. I think some of that is still a lack of confidence in Mario Cristobal. I think he won over some people with the playoff run last year, but not everybody. And they still had obviously some weird losses last season. But Miami's got a chance to really do some stuff. Like Darian Mintz is a better player than Carson Beck.
Yep.
It just is. And the defensive line, you're probably not going to be rolling out Akeem Mesidor and Ruben Bain, but like defensively, they're still pretty loaded out there. And I really think this team is like, if they're back in the semis next year, I can't say that I'd be super shocked. And maybe one day they can maybe make it to an ACC championship game. I know, Kirby Smart says this all the time, that it's harder to win the ACC than to win the national championship. And so
he did.
They couldn't get into it last year, but they were able to get into a national championship game. And one day maybe we'll see him in Charlotte, but I don't know.
Contract extension for Manny Diaz, by the way. So he lost his star quarterback and receiver very late, but he'll get a little bit more money.
That's ACC champion Manny Diaz to you, Chris.
For his troubles. Oklahoma game, which was not televised, so this is based on various local reports. John Mateer looked good, looked healthier. I don't know if we'll ever fully know how much the hand injury and the hand surgery halfway through last season really impacted the rest of his year. We thought there'd be up and downs in the SEC, but it was hard to get a real bar on what it was. People around Oklahoma who I talked to when I went up there too, they really like this group of running backs. Like there's a lot of depth here and they like the running backs, but how is that offensive line going to hold up? It was bad last year. It's been bad for a couple of years. They were a lot of young dudes last year, so they were a year older. Are they a year better? That's kind of my real question there. And then Danny Okoye looked really good in the spring game, edge rusher, filling that spot left by R. Mason Thomas, which will be a big thing for them because of what Oklahoma lost on the defensive line. And then I guess Bo Bentley, the backup freshman quarterback, didn't look great. He may not be the number 2, but got time to keep learning.
I think with Oklahoma, you mentioned it with the offensive line, they got to figure out a running game around John Mateer. I do think last year, the combination of watching his velocity pre-hand injury and then post-hand injury, and then I think I mentioned this last year, but I covered the Tennessee-Oklahoma game, and like he talked after the game, and like I saw the still healing scar on his throwing hand, like it looked gnarly, and like there's no way that doesn't have an effect on you mentally. I'm sure there's a lot of pain there, even as it's healing. Like it was substantial. Did you see Mateer when you were in Norman? Did you get a chance to see his hand?
Not like up close.
I'm sure it's still there. It was bad.
Yeah.
Like it was like nasty looking. And so I think that if you can come in and have like an actual healthy throwing hand, which, for a quarterback, especially one that's got the ball in his hand as much as John Mateer does, seems like a big deal.
Yeah, too much of the offense last year was play breaks down, Mateer scrambles, and finds something. And
not
that's
sustainable in about 80 different ways.
Which it ended up not being. So you need him healthy. Every quarterback needs a good running game. It's just basic football. So that offensive line will just simply have to be better. Down at Texas A&M, a couple of injuries in their spring game. Linebacker Damian Sanford and wide receiver Ashton Bethel Roman were hurt. Sanford, I believe, was voted a captain for 2026 and apparently was in a cast. Didn't look good. Not much of an update otherwise. Bethel Roman will apparently be fine. But other than that, there wasn't a ton to see or that I could really gather from Texas A&M, but that could be a notable loss at linebacker. Any other thoughts on the Aggies?
No, I feel like you'd be okay. As long as you're not breaking your femur in April, you're probably going to be okay for the fall.
Yeah, or tearing your ACL. So we'll see. Over at Auburn, Byron Brown, by all accounts, really struggled in this game. Threw 2 interceptions. The quarterbacks as a group threw 4. The defense was way ahead of the offense, which, that happens most of the time in spring, especially when you've got new coach, new offense, all this kind of stuff. But Jeremiah Cobb, running back, apparently looked really good, which is not a surprise. So there's that.
Can we opt out of all Byron Brown throwing motion discourse?
No, it's just starting. I mean,
we know this is what it is.
Us real ones have been talking about it since the Boise game to start last year, and we were all like, wait a minute, why is he throwing the ball differently?
It looked more elongated last year. I don't know what that was about, but
right, it got worse last year.
I don't know what to tell you. It is what it is. It's too late in the game now to be changing it. He knows the offense. He can put the ball where it needs to go. He's probably not going to ever be Tom Brady, but he's a really good football player. I don't know what people want. Go watch USF film. It is what it is. I don't want to engage in the what do people I don't know. He's Byron Brown. He's a really good football player. He's been for several years.
But if he's not playing well, then we're going to have the discourse. If he's playing well, then nobody cares. But if he's not, then we're going to talk about it. Do you remember Tim Tebow debuted a new throwing motion at his pro day back in the day?
I vaguely remember this.
Tebow had that really long wind-up throw as well, and then I think Johnny Manziel might have been the same thing. I think Manziel also debuted a new throwing motion at the pro day to wow people, and it worked for both of them somehow. So there's that. At Virginia Tech, most notable thing here was a parachuter missing, was supposed to land at midfield, ended up hitting the scoreboard.
That was my bad.
Getting stuck, had to be rescued by the fire department. He is apparently okay. There wasn't much else to take away from the scrimmage or from the practice itself based on what I saw, but that was a notable thing.
Yes. First of all, I'm so glad that he's okay because this was hilarious.
Yes.
If he's not okay, then we really don't necessarily have a license to talk about how incredible that was. Just comical in about 100 different ways. First of all, he hit the scoreboard hard, which is not attached to the stadium in Blacksburg. And then as he hits it, you have "This is how legends are made," hitting the pregame. Perfect. Listen, unintentional comedy, I think, is funnier most of the time than actual intentional comedy. This is the principle that has fueled the Jury Duty television show for 2 strong seasons.
You love that. You were watching. I do love that
show
instead of the NBA playing on Prime.
Yes, I love it. And so, man, I'm glad he's okay because to rob us of talking about how funny this was would have been a injustice. So, shout out to the paratrooper. Glad he's okay. But man, that clip is going to get some run if Virginia Tech struggles next year.
Speaking of clips that are going to get some runs, so there were a bunch of other spring games, scrimmages, whatever. I didn't get to see or research on all of them because it's been a busy weekend and we're recording this midday Sunday. But Texas, Oklahoma State, Michigan State, Virginia, Wake Forest, West Virginia, Cal, Kentucky, Georgia Tech, Duke, Cincinnati, Houston. Houston's apparently was at like 9:30 in the morning. Our friend Sam Kahn went. It wasn't in the stadium because some Easter event had like destroyed the field.
Oh,
So
I
they had
heard
to-
about this.
So they
Yeah,
had
it was
to
like
move
an
it.
Easter church service. I have so many questions about that, but not enough time to answer them. But yeah.
But Michigan State clip, the most viral clip from the performance was they were doing bat twirling, like when you
Dizzy
put
bat
your
spins, yeah.
dizzy bat, you put your head on a bat and you spin around a bunch of times and run. And I didn't have the full context. I assume they were just playing games and having fun, which is totally fine. That's what spring games are supposed to be. You don't have to. Not everything has to be serious. So have
If
some
they
fun,
had
do
a
whatever.
president of optics, though, the president
Yes,
of
this is
optics
the
in that
problem.
program now puts a kibosh. No cameras. We're about to do dizzy bat spins. No.
That is a clip that's going to come up if Michigan State's losing, 49-0 to Indiana again. So Pat
I think
Fitzgerald
again,
still work to do.
when it comes to president of optics, the narrative that will take hold is like this is just what they're doing in practice all day when it's probably like 2 minutes at the end of a practice. But I will say, Chris, I don't get motion sickness really at all, but being dizzy is one of my least favorite feelings like that there is. I'm extremely anti-dizzy guy. Where are you on this?
I used to love getting dizzy. I used to do roller
Why?
coasters like crazy. But
But I
as
don't
I've
get
gotten
dizzy on roller coasters. Nothing.
but
it doesn't really do
or
it
like
for me.
motion simulators and everything. But as I've gotten older, it's really hit me now where I can't do that stuff anymore. Motion simulators will make me throw up, and that was not the case when I was younger. It's like late onset, motion sickness or whatever. I don't know how that happens, but that is a very much a thing for me. Like we have Six Flags here in Arlington. And my brother will come up and we go, but we rarely go to the roller coasters anymore. We go to the water park. I have way more fun at the water park than the roller coasters because it's less a whole thing. So that's a lot of spring games. We're going to look into more of these and have more on this kind of later, but couldn't get to all of them. Wanted to get to the major ones first. I spent this week in the Pacific Northwest at Washington and at Oregon. And David, I don't know if you know this, but up in the Pacific Northwest, did you know it rains up there?
That's what I hear. Not a huge fan of it in general, but yeah. As a general, I would call myself very much a proponent of open air press boxes, but man, I was freezing at the Oregon James Madison playoff game. Now that's my fault. I didn't dress appropriately. I had a toboggan hat, but I pretty much had like a dress shirt and like a blazer. I didn't have layers. I was very cold in that game. It was not a pleasant experience, but that's on me. So
from the moment my plane touched down to the moment I drove out of Seattle to get to Eugene, it rained the entire time. It never stopped. So that was
there's a lot of that.
But we go back to the access thing. Washington has opened every practice this spring to the media and the public. Jed Fish, the last guest on the last episode of Until Saturday back in the day, we talked to him about that and we praised him for it. And everything's open. And so that's really cool. The practice I went to actually at the last minute got moved to the Seahawks indoor facility for whatever reason. So this one ended up not being open to the public, but the media was still there. Shout out Christian Capel, our former colleague on Montlake. Great website and newsletter. Everybody Washington fans should subscribe to. But Washington, complete opposite of Saban back in the day, and even Dan Lanning at Oregon. They haven't opened up practice for people to see. However, at Washington, despite everything being open, for the beat writers, there's a minimal availability. They talked to like a couple of people and that's it. And it's predetermined at the beginning of spring, which is kind of weird. I want to thank Washington. I got to talk to Jed Fish, Damon Williams, and a number of people there for some stuff I'm working on for a story. Stay tuned on The Athletic for that. But good to see everybody up there at Washington. Beautiful part of the country. That whole Pacific Northwest is beautiful. But Washington's interesting. They'll need to step up on defensive line and cornerback are a couple of holes they need to fill. But they're top 15 in returning production. They have almost all the true freshmen on campus going through spring. And the schedule sets up well for them. They finish with Indiana and Oregon. So the rest of the schedule, there's a USC game in there. I think an Iowa game in there. But Washington's schedule set up pretty good. You got Damon Williams back, got some good receivers. back. I think the offense is going to be really good there at Washington. Oregon, I talked to Dan Lanning, talked to Dante Moore. We talked to some other people who were there too. Didn't get to see anything. That's kind of the old Saban type of way. But Oregon is building a new indoor practice facility. And were they working on this when you were up there?
Yes, I believe so, but I don't think it was very far, but I'm not sure. I didn't get to spend a ton of time in Eugene because it was playoff weekend. I was staying in Portland, which, by the way, that drive down I-5 from Portland to Eugene, elite drive.
It's terrifying at night, and it's terrifying in the rain, which is what it was on the way there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's beautiful when it's not raining and it's daylight. Gorgeous drive. But the indoor practice facility is going to be the biggest one in the country. Humongous. It looks big from street level, but it's actually even bigger than that because it's partially being built into the ground. And Dan Lanning told me that the space from field up to the top is going to be larger than AT&T Stadium up to the scoreboard there. You know how they have the scoreboard hangover?
The practice facility is going to be that big?
The practice facility, not all of AT&T Stadium, but up to the bottom of the scoreboard, where the thing is.
Yeah.
This is the most vertical space of any practice facility that they're going to have. It looks really cool. Like it's going to be like a pedal, and it's above. It's going to be shaped like an O. It's going to be like kind of folded down. It looks gorgeous. It's going to open in 2027. Dan Lanning was in a temporary office. He was actually in Tosh Lupoi's old office. He's had to move there. I think he's going to move back into his new office that they're building in a couple of weeks, couple of months maybe. Good to that place at Oregon. I've never covered a game there. Have you covered?
I've only covered games there. I haven't really had a chance to go out there and check it out. There, Oregon games at Eugene or in Eugene are awesome. Autzen, we've gone over, not as loud as people say, but still very loud. But my list of places I need to go to games: Washington, BYU, Michigan, and Penn State are probably the top 4 that I need to go to. But Oregon's great.
I had done a Washington game, but I had never done anything else. I did that this weekend, and then I've never done a game at Oregon, but I've been there 2 or 3 times now. But really a beautiful place up there. Weather was actually terrific.
Quick detour, Chris. I would never detour the podcast, but a quick power ranking. Because you mentioned 2 of the best I-5 is a top 5 drive in America.
Hold on. I got an idea what you're gonna say. You're gonna say best drives in college football.
No, best drives in America that I have.
Okay, let's save this. We're planning to have Ari Wasserman on the show maybe next week because we're coming up on the 100th episode. Let's add that to one of the topics to talk about with Ari.
Can I list my worst drives?
Sure.
Worst drives, ones I've made plenty of times. The entire I-35 window, Oklahoma City to San Antonio, absolutely terrible. There's nothing.
There's not much.
It's awful. And Kansas City to Denver, just horrific. The entirety of Western Kansas,
never done that.
You feel like if your car breaks down, you're gonna die because there's nothing for anywhere. It's awful. Anyway.
So yeah, let's we'll talk about that more. I think next week with Ari. I got a couple of topics. We're just going to talk about some fun stuff.
Ari and I agree on number 1. I think we've talked about this maybe years ago, but yes,
he's made a lot of drives, so that'll be a good topic with him. And so that was my bit. Oregon should be good once again. Dante Moore's back. All the defensive linemen are back. They just got to learn how to finish.
They'll be right there again.
I'm we talked about this when Indiana whipped Oregon. And I brought it up to Dan Lanning. We talked about losing to teams the second time around, which has happened to Washington, to Ohio State, to Indiana. And he made the point of look, we're also losing to teams that are winning the national championship. So that's part of it, which is true. All of his losses, I think, except 1 or 2, were to a team who played for the national championship. So it's kind of how you got to weigh it there. But we know Oregon's going to be right there knocking at the door every year. They got really good players once again. We talked to Coy Parrish, who came in from Minnesota. He was coy, no pun intended, absolutely intended, about whether or not he's going to return kicks for the Ducks. But he's a guy who can do a lot of things. And yeah, the running backs will be back and young. Like they're going to be good. They're going to be really good once again. Maybe the preseason #1 team. So keep an eye on Oregon. Keep an eye on Washington. I love that rivalry too. Washington, Oregon, great stuff.
They played some great games. I'll
good
be at
visit
Alabama
up there.
this week, Chris.
Yes, you will be at Alabama this week. So you and I will not have a second pod this week because you'll be traveling, going to Bama. May or may not drop an interview later this week. TBD.
Probably. I'm gonna goad Chris into dropping it.
You know, I've actually never been to Tuscaloosa
Really?
for a game, for a practice.
It's like
no.
it's cool. It's pretty cool. Birmingham is cool. I think Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, much of Alabama, pretty appropriately rated. Like it has its not great areas, but like it has a lot of flavor. It has a lot of personality. I like Birmingham. I like Tuscaloosa.
I like it too.
I like Auburn. Like they're cool places. So yeah.
What questions do you have going into Alabama this week? Their spring, I think, is over. We talked last week about Keelan Russell and him balling out, but any other leftover thoughts you have about Bama that you're looking to get answered?
You have to read The Athletic for those, Chris. We're trying to answer one big question, but we'll see.
We'll see.
Exactly who I'm talking to is still kind of in flux, but we'll be plenty of folks. So anyway,
all right,
yeah.
And we're going to end the show the way we always do, and that is by remembering some guys.
It's better than this. Guys being dudes.
And I'm going to stick with the Washington Huskies where I just was. A coach we talked to, that is Taylor Mays, the former USC safety, former 99 overall in NCAA football video game back in the day.
Most importantly.
And currently the Washington safeties coach. He was a dude back at USC.
Big time hitter.
Good to see him. He's huge still, by the way. Gigantic guy.
I don't think I realized he was at Washington, but
I didn't realize until last year. I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute." Also, there's another guy. I'm going to save it. I'm not going to pull at David Ubben and drop two names. But there's another guy on the staff. I was like, "Oh yeah, I remember that guy." But Taylor Mays, that's my guy.
For me, I am going with former Vanderbilt linebacker Zach Cunningham. Tackling machine. Let's see here. His numbers overall: 103 tackles as a redshirt sophomore. Finalist for the Buckus Award the next year. Unanimous All-American. Vandy has had like some pretty good players come through, but they've never been able to kind of put it together like they did last year. But just an extremely fun linebacker. Just one of those guys that's everywhere. And also, back in the day on Madden, I played with the Texans, and I played a lot of Zach Cunningham lurking. But great player in college. Shout out to Zach Cunningham. We remember you.
Great call. And we need more nominations from you, the listeners. Please send those in. We have a couple, but need to kind of refresh that pool. And please do that. But Andrew Klinkenbeard lists OU quarterback Blake Bell, the Belldozer.
The dozer. Yeah.
Andrew says, I have fond memories of watching him trot out onto the field on 3rd and 3, just knowing he was getting that first down.
That was the surest bet in the Big 12 for a solid couple of years. Blake Bell, weird football career. Came in as like a blue chip quarterback. Didn't really work out. I forget. Did he lose the job to Landry Jones? I forget who he lost the job to. I think he's after Landry Jones. I forget the timeline. But he just wasn't, kid from Wichita. Didn't end up becoming like the quarterback prospect people thought, but turned into the Belldozer, which was hugely valuable in short yardage, and then had like a pretty good NFL career as a tight end. If I recall. Yeah, I don't know if he's still in the league. Is he still in the league?
He was not anymore, but he was playing as recently as 2023, and he won 3 Super Bowls with the Chiefs.
I don't think I knew that. All right. There you go.
And he did lose. He was the backup to Landry Jones, but he also lost out on the job to Trevor Knight.
Ah, okay. That's another guy. Speaking of remembering some guys, Chris.
Doing this too many times. But please send in more nominations to bunchformationpod@gmail.com. A lot of teams wrapping up spring. And so as we kind of move forward, we'll get into some other topics like best drives, best quarterbacks, teams, we're most interested in, stadiums. We're going to get into all that fun ranking type of content now as we get past spring into a dead part of the calendar. But it was good to watch some football over the weekend with all these spring games that David apparently hates, but I'm enjoying it. It's good to be out, see some practice, and you will be seeing some of that as well. So that'll do it here for David Ubben. I'm Chris Vannini. Thank you for listening and watching to Bunch Formation, and we will talk to you later this week.
And please, even this spring, bring back the turnover chain.